I'll remember you long after this endless summer is gone. I'll be lonely, oh so lonely, living only to remember you. I'll remember you, your voice is soft as the warm summer breeze, your sweet laughter mornings after, ever after. I'll remember you, to your arms someday I'll return to stay. Till then I will remember too every bright star we made wishes upon. Love me always, promise always. Ooh, you'll remember too. I'll remember you.
Sometimes people come in and out of our lives, and before we realise it, they've made an indelible mark on our hearts and our minds, just simply by being who they are. They don't have to be famous, rich or noteworthy, just good, kind and take a genuine interest in others. Charles Alfred Hinds, better known to you all as Charlie, was one of those people. Family and friends, a very warm welcome to each of you this afternoon as we gather in strength and in love to honour the memory and pay tribute to the life of a much-loved man in your lives. A loving father, grandfather, brother, uncle and friend. I would also like to welcome family and friends from all over Australia who are unable to be with us and are joining us by live stream. Welcome. My name is Delma Carpenter, and along with Scott and his colleagues from Pinegrove Funerals, we feel privileged to have been asked to conduct this service for you. Please, if you haven't done so already, now is a really good time for you to turn your mobile phones onto silent. It is with sadness that we're here today. Although Charlie had not been well, his family did not expect him to go so soon. They thought that they would have had him for much longer. It's not an easy time at all dealing with the loss of a loved one. Charlie's parting is bound to bring sadness and sorrow. A branch of your family tree has fallen, and it may feel like a piece of your life jigsaw is missing, and no matter how hard you try to rearrange the pieces, they never quite fit the same. It'll be the memories that you have of Charlie that will bring you comfort. For now, be compassionate with yourselves and take the space and the time you need to grieve. I'm reminded of a quote from Cahill Gibran, who said, "When you are sorrowful, look again into your heart, and you shall see that in truth you are weeping for that which has been your inspiration." And I feel sure today that we're celebrating the life of a man who's been an inspiration to you all. I'd now like to invite granddaughter Frankie and Reese to come forward, and Frankie's going to lead us in the Lord's Prayer, and Reese the poem Golf Course in the Sky. We might move the mic up as well.
The Golf Course in the Sky by Michael Ashby. As 18 flags flew at half-mast and glasses were soberly raised high, the latest member was having a ball at the golf course in the sky. Freed from the gravity of the situation, the first tee shot soared through space, bringing a wondrous, beaming smile to a kind, down-to-earth face. Surrounded by old club friends, once thought never to be seen again,
Surrounded by old club friends, once thought never to be seen again, the infinity course beckoned ahead. 18 holes were for only mere mortal men. It's the Lord's Prayer, folks. If you'd like to join Frankie, you're welcome to.
Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.
Beautiful, thank you.
Thank you, girls. What an exceptional man Charlie was. He may have carried the accumulation of years in his body and his face, but he had a young outlook and did not let his age weigh on his spirit. Age never stopped an independent Charlie from doing what he wanted to do, and old was not part of his vocabulary. As Abraham Lincoln said, in the end, it's not the years in your life that counts, it's the life in your years. And Charlie certainly had life in his years. He was an amazing man who led a full life and was passionate about whatever he did. Charlie was never idle and liked to keep busy. To him, sitting around reading a book was considered lazy. Living through war times and the Depression, Charlie was naturally frugal and never wasteful. While he loved a bargain, he mostly bought the best he could afford and what would last the longest. Charlie had a quiet nature and more comfortable around people he knew. He was a character, set in his ways, had a routine, and was not backward in telling you if you were not listening to his conversation. To say Charlie was a competitive sportsman was an understatement. In his younger years, he played rugby and went on to be a state representative. He enjoyed water skiing and snow skiing in the winter months. In later years, he took up golf and, being left-handed, spent hours chipping golf balls, trying to get a good swing with his right hand. Charlie played with the Thurleston Golf Club, and through his commitment to the fledgling club, he became a life member. He was also a social member of the Devonport Golf Club. Charlie was passionate about food and cooking. He would often joke that he'd been a military chef in his earlier years, as he loved cooking dishes in bulk. He liked to try new recipes, getting ideas from watching cooking shows and taking Chinese cooking lessons. A young at heart Charlie in his 70s often thought he could do more than he could. He was adventurous and a bit of a dreamer and would have liked to have bought a Harley and rode it across the Nullarbor Plain, or joined the fruit picking trail, harvesting fruit all around Australia. And another of his dreams was to visit the Antarctica. Charlie was a hard-working, passionate figure of strength who never waned in his support and love for his family and his friends. They say that the best inheritance you can leave your children and grandchildren is a good example, and Charlie certainly did that. I'd now like to invite Kate and Jason, and they're going to continue on with more stories of Charlie.
Thank you everyone for coming today, and just obviously it's going to be hard for us to get through this, so bear with us, but I'd just like to thank Kate. She took point on setting all this up. Fred and Lois, thank you so much for helping out.
Definitely.
We're a long way over there, so yeah. Anyway, so we'll have a read about this eulogy and we'll get that through, yeah?
Yes.
All right, bear with us, please. Okay. We'd like to begin this eulogy by thanking everyone for coming to celebrate the life of Charles Alfred Hinds. We all know him as Charlie or Chas. Charlie was our dad. He was stubborn and determined, but also generous at times with his time and willingness to help. Charlie was born on the 5th of January 1933 in Sydney, New South Wales. He was the third born child and the eldest son of Frederick Gordon Hinds and Mary Barnes Hardy. His siblings were, from the eldest to the youngest, Norma, May and Gordon. Gordon is also known as Fred. Charlie's dad was in the army, and in his early years the family lived in Tamworth. He completed his schooling at the Christian Brothers Catholic School in Tamworth and later at the De La Salle, Armidale. During his schooling years, his father was away in the army and his mum and siblings moved in with Miss Burrell and their 6 children on a farm.
So the household had a combined 10 children, with Charlie's mum and Mrs. Brill trying to keep everyone fed, clothed and behaved. They lived on a chook farm, and Charlie and Fred, along with Mrs. Brill's sons, Peter and Bernard, did a lot of the chores due to the absence of any adult males. Charlie was the oldest of the boys, and most definitely the instigator. A very common term heard in that household was Charlie did it. One of the chores the 4 boys undertook was to cut up hay for the chooks. That involved putting the hay through a cutter. Charlie used to dare all the boys to place their hands and fingers in as far as possible with each cut. So Peter undertook the challenge and accidentally placed his finger slightly too far in. He lost one of his fingers to the first knuckle. There was immediately much commotion, yelling, blood and crying. Charlie scooped up the hay, complete with the blood and the tip of the finger, and threw it in all to the chooks. The chooks swooped in for the fingertip, and the boys watched on in horrid fascination as the chooks fought over the meaty treat. Peter took off back to the farmhouse, crying and blood everywhere. Charlie definitely did it that time.
After schooling was finished for Charlie, he became an indentured apprentice as a motor mechanic. He started his apprenticeship in Armidale and he finished his trade, and the family left for Tasmania. He lived there briefly with the family, and him and Fred represented Tasmania for rugby league. They even played a game against New South Wales, predominantly made up of Armidale lads who they had gone to school with. Charlie then left for New South Wales and continued his work as a mechanic. He lived in various places throughout Sydney, but loved the North Shore and loved the beach and the harbour. He was an avid beachgoer and loved to body surf and swim in the ocean as often as he could. He holidayed in Kingscliff and run amok at King's Cross after dark, apparently. During this time, he started driving a truck interstate as well as around the state, and included runs to Adelaide, Brisbane, Sydney and Melbourne. He even managed to catch up with Fred and Eve on their honeymoon in Melbourne. He hauled a lot of carpet rolls, loading them by himself physically without machinery, as he used to remind us all the time. But he carried all sorts of haulage and pretty much anything that would pay the bills. He later bought his first truck with his mate Kenny Dunn. They went out on their own as owner-drivers, and the lads had many an adventure and covered many, many miles. They did this basically to make a decent living. So to make a decent living, it was at a point where one would sleep while the other one drove, and that truck just ran the whole time. One time during this type of operation that we don't see these days, I can assure you, their old Dodge truck was moving very slowly, climbing up a steep hill that they'd been up and down quite a few times. Whilst Charlie was driving, Kenny was asleep. Charlie never wanted to be idle, as we know, so he decided he could get out and run alongside the slow-moving truck as it went up the hill. He thought it would be great exercise. So as the truck was chugging slowly up the hill, he scrambled out the door and landed just enough or close enough to the truck so that he could jog along whilst keeping the steering wheel under control. So on one of these trips, while going up the hill in this manner, Kenny woke up. He looked across, saw that the wheel and the driver's seat was unoccupied, and of course he was terrified and immediately got a shock, screamed and yelled and carried on and was petrified trying to get the truck under control. Charlie's jumped back up into the front seat and said, "What's all the fuss about?" Basically, as you can imagine, there were choice words, and Charlie's loved that story ever since it occurred. There would have been a lot of swearing, I'm absolutely certain of that.
So Charlie's family were now all living in Tasmania, so he made the decision to move back to there. He had always wanted to own his own farm. On the day that he arrived back in Tasmania, he went and viewed a farm at Erebor. It was approximately 300 acres. He fell in love with it and he bought it that day on the spot. When he arrived to see his mum and dad, he proudly announced that he had bought a farm. Around this time, he also applied for work with the hydro as a mechanic and worked out at Gowrie Park. He used to ride his little motorbike to and from work in all weather conditions. His mum and dad lived with him on the farm for a time. His siblings, Norma and May and Fred, had all started their own families, and he was a devoted uncle who loved having the children visit him on the farm. They all reminisce about the happy memories on the farm and memories of hunkering down into the tray of the ute with the tarp covering their bodies and being driven home are very fondly recalled by the kids. May and Norma both supported Charlie in his endeavours to work full-time and also run a productive farm that produced beef cattle by cooking him his meals. And one of his very good mates out at Gowrie Park was John Braid. John's wife Eileen had a cousin, a divorcee named Pamela. Pamela had 2 children named Jason and Kate. Pamela talked with Eileen and John and asked John if he had any good workmates that would be suitable for her to date. John knew of an eligible bachelor that would be perfect match. John and Eileen introduced Charlie to Pamela and they started dating. It was interesting for Charlie to hear that Pamela lived in Melbourne, right where he had driven past on many a trucking run, and yet they had not known each other back then.
At a later stage, the hydro moved its workshop to Ulverston. Charlie had purchased a unit in Ulverston to be closer to work. Charlie and Pamela were quite serious by this stage, and Charlie proposed to Mum, and they were married on the 18th of December in 1976. Pam was adamant she didn't want to live on the farm, and the unit was just a bit too small for all four of us. Charlie and Pam agreed to start afresh, and they bought a new home in Devonport in Tasmania. Jason and Kate love Charlie and love the opportunities that moving to Tasmania provided to us. The family did lots of road trips, including staying in Sydney with May and her family. We went to Brisbane, Bribie Island, saw Norma and her family. We're in Melbourne to Pam's brother's place, his new bride Susie, as well as plenty of trips up to Surfers Paradise. Those long trips meant that Charlie's long-haul trucking experience made the long distances fly by, especially for him. Probably not so much for us in the back seat.
And he did drive.
There was
He
no
did get out
stopping.
jogging.
Someone might overtake, all that sort of stuff that he had to pass 2 hours ago, right? Every trip the cars were packed to the hilt. There's no doubt about that. No trailers. Fred and his family also moved to Devonport, so we all got to catch up a lot with those guys. Evie and Pamela became firm friends, and Charlie and Fred were always very close. There was always a family dinner somewhere with everyone contributing, and of course everyone would be eating far too much.
Charlie joined the Thurleston Golf Club when it was just starting out. He encouraged Pamela to play and join as well. They did a lot of golfing competitions within Tasmania and on the mainland, making lifelong friends that they played with regularly. Once the children, that's us, had grown up and left home, golf became their passion and their purpose. Fred and his wife Evie, along with Charlie and Pamela, were always either golfing together, talking about their latest game, or planning their future games. Thurleston Golf Club offered them life membership as a fundraising option when they first started up. After much discussion, Pamela and Charlie signed up, and gee whiz, did they get their money's worth. Charlie did many a working bee there and was well regarded as a committed golfer and a hard worker. Anything he created was built to last, and his seats are still in use at the golf club. It was only through ill health and old age that Charlie stopped attending the golf club. He spent most weekends golfing or volunteering at the club. Upon retirement, he also played midweek as well. He owned a Yamaha golf buggy that the grandkids and the grandnieces and nephews loved to be driven about in. Charlie has taught many people to golf, and his love and passion for the game has worn off on many. Unfortunately, it never wore off on us. So Jason and Kate grew up and left home. Jason completed an apprenticeship in the Air Force. Charlie was so proud of his accomplishments. Jason and Kate also joined the police service in Queensland, and Kate later joined the Tasmania Police Service. Both Charlie and Pamela were proud of their children and attended their graduations. The Queensland graduation was held in Brisbane, and Jason and Kate were graduating in the same class, along with 160 plus other graduates, also included CJ. So all of the graduates and their families stood on the steps to meet and greet any other family and members turning up before the ceremony. Jason and Kate waited and waited for Charlie and Pamela, but they could not be found. Jason and Kate had to head inside and start the ceremony. Pamela and Charlie arrived a little late, but still in time to watch Jason and Kate complete the ceremony and march out. Charlie later explained that there were too many police at the front entrance of a police graduation, mind you, and so did not want to enter that way. He insisted that him and Pamela enter another way to avoid all of those police. Somehow they found an alternative entrance. They snuck in undiscovered and sat up in the audience to enjoy the parade and ceremony. And they never did tell us how they managed to get in past all those police without going through the formal entrance.
It was soon after graduation ceremony that Dad had his heart attack. It happened in Sydney, and he ended up getting a triple heart bypass. His golf and fitness meant He recovered quickly, and him and Pamela continued their golfing and travels. Sorry. Next sheet, sorry. Mum became unwell with cancer, and Charlie looked after her and nursed her in our home. She passed away peacefully with Charlie by her bedside. He loved Pamela deeply and was broken-hearted by her loss, as we all know. His family and friends have rallied around him since then and supported him, and he kept up his golf as much as he could, took long walks with the little dog that they had mustered. As Dad aged, he decided to sell the family home. Don't know if he decided or not, but it had to happen. And he moved into a nice new unit there at Merecroft. Made some new friends there they'd just been fabulous neighbours to him. We're so appreciative. He still practices his golf swing because there's a paddock right out the front. He thought nothing of chipping 100 balls with one hand, another 100 balls with the other hand, and maybe another 100 for good luck, and then wondered why he had a sore shoulder. But he loved living close to the bluff, obviously. There was a bit for him to do there. And yeah, he was still swimming in winter till only a couple of years ago and things like that. I think just to show off in front of the footy boys. He's told a few people that kind of thing as well. But yeah, obviously the golfing slowed down a bit.
Charlie's commitment to his golf, swimming, walking and gardening meant that he was always active. He also loved cooking and his gardening and his war documentaries. Even though Charlie became unwell, he was determined to get back into his unit. However, his poor health took his toll, and Charlie passed away at Merecroft Care. The world is a sadder place without Charlie's presence in our lives, but he touched the hearts of all of us, and for that we are very grateful. He's left us with memories that we will cherish. We will close with this quote from Greg Norman. In golf, as in life, it is the follow-through that makes the difference. Thank you everyone for attending and for sharing today with us.
Thank you, Kate and Jason. That was a beautiful tribute to Dad. Just before we move ahead in the service, it's a pre-warning to let you know that we do have some pre-recorded tributes that we're now going to play, but after that we're going to have a time for any of you that would like to come forward with a story or a tribute of Charlie. That would be great to hear them. So we'll now go ahead with our recorded tributes.
Good afternoon, everybody. It's been a difficult week for everybody. I certainly didn't expect to be talking like this about Charlie at this stage, but here we are. I first knew Charlie when I was about 7 years old, when he moved to Tassie and bought the farm. We spent a lot of time on that farm, a lot of playing, a lot of working, and it was just a ball. He was a really great uncle, more like a father figure. As a teenager, look, he used to take us snow skiing. He tried to help me play golf. Didn't have a lot of success. He would love a game of backyard cricket with my brother and I. And he was really just a big kid in lots of ways. Over the past 30 years, we were more like great mates, even having a similar hairstyle, which was cool. He loved his visits to Sydney, and it was just fantastic how he got along with my daughters, Belinda and Shania in particular. Wonderful. In 2004, we decided to go to the US to see Steve get married in Florida. That was a great time, and again, it was more like a mate than an uncle. Charlie was a great storyteller. One thing that comes to mind, there may be slightly different versions of it, but he was standing in a queue in a department store to have his presents for free wrapping. He was about the third or fourth in line. The lady doing the wrapping got to, he was one off the table, and she decided to pack it up and go to lunch. So anyway, he thought, bugger this, I'll do my own wrap. So he was wrapping his. Meanwhile, a couple of people lined up, and he thought, you know what, I'll do a couple more. So he did another 3 or 4 people's wrapping. Then he said, bugger this, and walked off and left them standing there. So that was a funny story. Another one in the US when we were arranged to meet downstairs from the hotel, one of the bars. I couldn't find him anywhere. About 30 minutes later, I thought I'd go look for him, and here he was sitting in a bar with about a dozen bikies, holding table and just having a couple of beers with them. I thought that was funny as well. Anyway, look, Charlie, he really was a friend to anybody, best mate you could have, and look, I will always treasure forever the thoughts and memories of you. Thank you, Charlie, for being a part of my life.
Hey everyone, I am Belinda. I was one of Charlie's great nieces. I don't really know what to start with in this speech, but I do know what Charlie would tell me. He would tell me to start with what comes from the heart, and he would tell me to write about what I think is important. And in this time, it is him. I love Charlie more than anything. He was like another dad to me. He taught me how to play golf. He taught me that I have a genuine fear of clowns and that no matter what, to always be myself. I remember the first time I ever held a golf stick in my hand and how he told me and made me promise to not hit him with it because of how much it would hurt. And a couple of minutes later, on total accident, I hit him in a place that he would not want to be hit with a golf stick. But even though I did that, the pure joy and the happiness I saw in his face when I hit the ball correctly and got it over the practice post will forever live in my mind. He was so happy and proud that he tackled me to the ground and gave me the biggest hug. I remember one time when he was in Sydney visiting Nana and Papa, he took me to the Royal Sydney Show. We went on the Ferris wheel and we went on the giant slip and slide, the really tall ones where you got to go down the potato sack. We were on the train back and he wanted to sit on the top deck of the train, which meant he had to get upstairs. When we got to the top, he was out of breath and said to me, I got to get back down those stupid bloody things again, don't I? And I don't think I have giggled so hard. We went into Chinatown one day and there was this clown, and Charlie insisted I went over to it. I wouldn't budge. When I wasn't looking, he got the clown right behind me, and boy, I don't think he has ever heard someone scream so loud. I ran so fast and he laughed so hard. I loved his laugh so much. There was this one Christmas he was down in Sydney, and there was Christmas ham sitting on the table. I could have sworn I only turned my head for 30 seconds and the ham was gone. I'd never seen ham disappear so fast. He was such an amazing, warm, loving person, and I could go on and on about him. I will forever remember him, and he will always hold a special place in my heart. He lived an amazing life, and this is not goodbye, it's just thank you and see you later. I thank you for loving me the way you did. I thank you for the way you changed my life, and I thank you for all the memories we had and that I will forever cherish. I love you forever and always, Uncle Charlie.
Cause what about angels?
Dear Uncle Charlie, it's really sad to see you go. You are the best person I've ever met. I love you more than anything in the world. Starting from now, I will see you in my mind, dreams, and etc. because I love you more than anything. I was crying for days because I missed you so much. I wish you were still here so I could show you my latest edition piano song. I love everything that you taught me. You bought my new favourite pillow, aka Beetle. I love that you taught me how to throw and catch. Because of you teaching me, I'm now a netball star. I do netball gala at school because you taught me how. You are the best uncle ever. Nothing on this planet is better than you. I've never met anyone in the world better than you. You are in my heart all the time. Thank you for doing everything. Love your great niece, Shania.
We wanted to send our condolences to the family and also share some of our fond memories of Charlie. We will always have Charlie in our hearts for his strength and humour. He taught me how to play cricket and taught Matt the fundamentals of golf. His commitment and perseverance to golf will always be inspirational to us. I remember the days on the farm as some of the best memories growing up. Riding our motorbikes and rounding up the cattle was fun for us, but we also saw the hard work that Charlie put into the farm. It was a wonderful part of our lives, and I will never forget those times. On our last trip to Tassie, Charlie put up with us all intruding into his beautiful home and made us the most amazing curried scallops that Giselle has been begging me to replicate, but I've never been able to quite get the flavours that Charlie did. We wish we could be there today to share in his memories. He has touched us all and will always be grateful for having Charlie as part of our family. We will always love and remember Charlie. Thank you.
Hi, my darling uncle. Just want to say goodbye, but also hello. You'll be in our hearts forever, and all the good memories we'll never ever forget. All the times we were kids and Uncle Charlie was there for the beach. Uncle Charlie was there for the farm. All your visits, we'll never ever forget you. But do you know what? You're always with us because you're always in our hearts. You'll be everywhere we go. We can see you. We can talk to you. You won't be that far away ever again. And Mum and Dad and Auntie Evie and especially your Pammy are all up there with you. So I know you'll create havoc up there, my darling. And don't stir Mum up too much. Like all those stories she told us with you going and seeing her in her beautiful uniform and you rocking up in your dirty old overalls. You know what Mum was like. She didn't take kindly to that. And clopping down the road with a horse with one shoe missing, and everyone heard it, and Mum looked out the window and knew damn well who it was. It was you. So lots of things, darling. Don't pick on her up there because we'll have great big black clouds over our house, and I know you're giving Mum another hard time. But until we meet again, my darling, you take care. Love you, Uncle Charlie. Thank you for all the fun times, all the great memories. And as I said, you're never far away. We'll look up and see the stars. We'll see the sun shining. We'll see the sunsets, the sunrises, the dark clouds, and we'll think of you all up there together. Enjoy your heavenly family, sweetheart. Take care, love you, and rest in peace. Bye, Uncle Charlie. Love you.
Hello, Charlie. We're back again. We had a lovely talk a few days ago, so I thought we'd just have a little chit-chat now. We very, very happy now. We're at David's and Rose's place, very well looked after. So I just thought I'd give you a little call and say goodbye. Thought we'd go back down to your early days when you were 5 and I was 7, and I was called your little mum because I looked after you. My mother was busy with other things, and we went and did everything together. We went. We used to get up every morning. It's 6 o'clock. We lived at Cronulla, right on the beach. And Charlie and I used to get dressed in our cozies and ran down the street and straight into a lovely ocean pool. We had our swim and we really enjoyed it. The pool is still there today, I think. And we came home and the breakfast was on the table then. So we really enjoyed our living in Cronulla. It's a lovely place and it still is, very boisterous and noisy now. But we enjoyed it, and after we had our swim, we'd go for walks or go to do some shopping. And Charlie and I were always together because my older sister was 5 years older and she went to school and left us. So I was known as Charlie's little mother. But we had a happy life there at Cronulla. We loved Cronulla and would still be there. Only the war started, 1944, I think, 39. Anyway, we had a lovely time there. Charlie went to the boys' Catholic school and I went to the girls' school, both very good schools, top schools. After that, we used to just play together and do all the things like that, and we were just very, very close. And after that, war was declared, so all the men folk had to go to the war and left the women there. And we were there for a little while on our own, but after that, the Japanese came, and they were so close with their subs under the ocean and that, we decided to move. So we went up to Tamworth. We had a lovely life out there. You used to go and annoy Norma and anybody here there. You were up to all sorts of tricks. But we had a good time together. Then your ears had been playing up, so my mother took you to the hospital to see about that, and that's when the first trouble started. They didn't find out what was wrong, and it went on for years. It's quick visits into the city all the time. But anyway, we had a good life, and things have changed now, but we're still enjoying life, and I'm sure you'll be quite happy. No worries up there. You did a good job with your farm. Yes. Your farm was good, and after that, when your own home, which you left just recently, wasn't a great place. You had your animals, and you loved it all. So we think of those sort of things now. Anyway, one day, you never know, we might meet again. We're going to look after ourselves now. We've got a great company, great friends and neighbours. So we'll be right. Dad wants to say a few words.
Yes, Charlie, it was a wonderful life we had together on the farm and so forth, and being motor mechanics sort of. They all came well, and everything went well, and it was wonderful, friend, as you were.
Yes, we loved you both, and we had when Pam was alive, you never missed a weekend to go and see at the graveside. So I'm sure now she'll be happy you're beside her, and all the best.
That's it.
All the best, and we'll think of you. We'll see you again one day. Well, I'll go and find David now. He looks after us very, very well. We're lucky people. Bye now, Charlie. Love you. Bye-bye.
As I mentioned before, we have a time that we call the open mic, where any of you are invited to come forward and share a story or a memory of Charlie with us. Nobody's hopping off their seat. I'm sure there's going to be many stories and that shared at refreshments after the service. We're now going to see Charlie's life through photos with an audio-visual presentation while listening to some of his favourite music.
now the end is near, and so I face the final curtain. My friend, I'll say it clear, I'll state my case, of which I'm certain. I've lived a life that's full. I traveled each and every highway and more, much more than this. I did it my way. Regrets, I've had a few, but then again, too few to mention. I did what I had to do, saw it through without exemption. I planned each charted course, each careful step along the byway, and more, much more than this, I did it my way. Yes, there were times, I'm sure you knew, when I bit off more than I could chew. But through it all, when there was doubt, I ate it up and spit it out. I faced it all, and I stood tall, and did it my way. I've loved, I've laughed and cried, I've had my fill, my share of losing, and now, as tears subside, I find it all so amusing to think I did all that, and may I say, not in a shy way, oh no, not me. I did it my way. For what is a man? What has he got? If not himself, then he has not to say the things he truly feels, and not the words of one who kneels. The record shows I took the blows and did it my way. Yes, it was my way.
Everybody for all your birthday wishes. I was trying for your birthday wishes. I was trying to forget things.
I'm sure from all the chuckling in the front row there is a story behind every photo. The family have asked me on their behalf to thank the medical staff at both hospitals, Mersey Community and the North West Regional. They would also like to express their gratitude to the staff and the management at Merecroft Care for their wonderful care and support of Charlie. Again, to all of you here today, as well as those who are joining us by live stream, the families wish to sincerely thank you for your presence. Today we've had the opportunity of hearing about Charlie's life, yet each person here no doubt would have their own story and memories to tell, so that's why it's so important after the service to get together. So with this in mind, the family invite you to join them here at Mersey Gardens for refreshments. The stories and the conversations we've shared about Charlie will remain with you. He's lived and his living has touched us all in different ways. May you remember Charlie for the good things that he did and for the time shared with him and for the man that he was. The significant moments and the fun times that you had with him and the times that you struggled with him and the times you as a family and friends supported him. We give thanks for Charlie's life. We thank Charlie for being the fun-loving person that he was. We thank him for his friendship and his loyalty, his kindness and generosity, his independence and his determination. And mostly we thank him for his love and his care. I'd like to conclude Charlie's memorial service today with the following words. As Charlie was on the green of the 18th hole of his final round, he stood and looked back over the course of his life with some pride. He certainly scored a hole-in-one when he met the love of his life, Pamela. He scored an amazing 2 birdies with his children, Kate and Jason, and an albatross with the arrival of his grandchildren, grandnieces and nieces and nephews. The angle of approach that he'd taken in his life proved more than worthwhile. And it's true that occasionally he was glad he had a good balance to avoid the bunkers wherever possible. As Charlie put his putter back in his bag for the last time, while he didn't really want the game to end and was sad that it had, he was looking forward to catching up with his family and friends and his darling wife Pamela, who had finished the game before him and were waiting at the 19th hole at the Eternity Golf Club. On leaving the service today, you're invited to place some petals up the front up here to pay tribute to Charlie.
You remember me when the west wind moves among the fields of barley. You can tell the sun in his jealous sky when we walked in fields of gold. So she took her love for to gaze a while among the fields of barley. In his arms she fell as her hair came down among the fields of gold. Will you stay with me? Will you be my love among the fields of barley? And you can tell the sun in his jealous sky when we walked in fields of gold. I never made promises lightly, and there have been some that I've broken, but I swear in fields of gold. We'll walk in fields of gold. Many years have passed since those summer days among the fields of barley. See the children run as the sun goes down, as you lie in fields of gold. You remember me when the west wind moves among the fields of barley. You can tell the sun in his jealous sky when we walked in fields of gold. When we walked in fields of gold. When we walked in fields of gold.